I came from Jamaica.
I was born in St Vincent.
I was from St Kitts.
My brother and I were born in Barbados.
Answering the call of the British Empire.
Grenada, Aruba, Jamaica, Cuba, Anguilla.
And we've both been called
ghosts. Ghosts.
I came here at the end of 1959. My dad was living in St Albans in Worthy Road, where he rented rooms. My grandma sent for me because I was the first of the grandchildren. I was from St Kitts. I lived in a village called Settlers, and my mum lived in a place called Blackford. I used to go and stay with them at nights because, she was on her own. Because my uncle and my dad was in England, so, she never liked to sleep on her own at night. So I used to go and stay with her and go to school from there. Well, my mum, she decided that she didn't want to come to England and leave her children behind for families to look after. Because not all families are nice, to their niece and nephew if they left them there. So she decided she would rather be in England after us.
I was born in St Vincent, the 3rd of March, 1940, and folks, was coming to answer the call of the British Empire. And yes, folks left before me. So, to England, I decided that I would like to have a go. I left for England the 25th of June, 1960.
The family came by stages. My brothers came first and then sent for others. We were the last out of the family to come because my mum kept all the children when her sisters went and left the children with her. And then mum made her way here and then sent for the kids. So I came by ship. Some people came by plane, but I came over by ship. I wasn't well on the ship. I had seasickness on the ship. It came so that I was very ill, and they thought they would have to take me off by helicopter. But in the end, I was all right. But I spent my whole time in the hospital. So I never saw anything like the ocean or anything like that, only through the porthole. It wasn't a bad journey, but I wouldn't like to do it again.
And on my way, it was, I believe, Saturday night, early Sunday morning. We went to Grenada, then to Aruba, and then went to Jamaica. And from Jamaica, our next stop was Cuba. So, Saturday night, early Sunday morning to the Wednesday, Thursday, arrive in Jamaica and pass Cuba, and from Cuba to South London. The entire trip from St Vincent, We leave 25th of June and arrive the 17th of July, so it was quite a good stay. About 3 weeks almost, just over 3 weeks, isn't it?
They wanted my mum to come and leave behind myself and my brother Ezra because we were born in Barbados. I have 2 other siblings, Joe and Chris, and they were born in England. But my mum refused to come without her children because she knew how the other kids felt not having their parents around. And she was adamant she'd live in Barbados or with us. She wasn't coming without us. A family friend who was coming to England brought me and my sister, my half-sister. But as I said, I spent more of my time in hospital, so I never really saw much of the journey. Only when we would come in at the end of it. We came in like Scotland way, and I saw a bit of that. With all the ships coming in, I saw their headland, where all the sheep and cows, everything, grazing on the top. So it was quite good.
Well, the ship was very good. Plain sailing. I would say because there were no hiccups. It was just, at the age of 20, you never experienced that. Such a long time from your home. But it was good. It was plain sailing.
I'm fortunate we were able to come. I always remember BOAC in those days was the airline. We didn't come by boat, thank the Lord, but we came by plane,
We arrived in Southampton.
Are those people waiting for us?
Who are they?
And why are they bringing so many coats?
At first I think, oh, it's just like the West Indies, But when you land, it's a different matter.
When I arrived in the UK at Southampton, I was quite amazed. It was a Sunday afternoon and a nice sunny day. Could have been a very good view, but seeing the smoke coming from the houses, I was wondering what? Did you know it was going to be high noon and there was smoke coming? I never see those type of houses, got smoke coming from them. From Southampton, we went to Waterloo. And then again, it was another fantastic experience because I'd never eaten a train before. And seeing the houses still smoking, I couldn't work it out. I couldn't understand what that was all about. I couldn't work out how people could live in that way with smoke coming out of the house all the time,
I take the train to St Albans.
My family already didn't go.
My father, my uncle, and my grandma.
They have rooms in a house. It's crowded, but everyone's friendly. It doesn't feel like home.
When I came to St Albans, I couldn't find anywhere to go. No place to live. And you'd be surprised. I had to leave my suitcase and walk. And I remember when I slept in Clarence Park. I spent a week in Clarence Park. Because where am I going to live? I got lots of cousins, but they had no room. And eventually I ended up at Granville Road, what used to be number 31. Don't think the house is there now. By September, early leaves on the trees were gone. It was so cold to me, because imagine where I come from.
England's a very cold place. They didn't feel it at first, but now I feel cold all the time.
And now I know what the coats were for.
It's winter here, much colder than Jamaica.
And foggy. You can't even see your hand in front of your face.
I've never seen that before.
When I'm speaking, it looks like I'm smoking.
I'm a bit frightened because they think, oh good, my grandma will think I've been smoking.
But it's just the heat coming out of your body.
But it's nice for me because I can't really compare it with anything else. And in our road, we have so many different Caribbean families. We all blend together when it's time for school. We go as a group. As you walk, you collect everyone along the route. So we go as a big gang to school, St Peter's School, Cottonmilk, and we come home together.
Our schools back home are very different from here. Here you don't have to wear uniform unless you go to big school. Back home, you wore uniform all the time, even from little school upwards. You're always dressed in uniform. and you had to be immaculate when you went to school back home. But here, it's, totally different. My secondary boarding school in Fanfield Girls' School, which is across Hatfield Road. The wearing uniform for me is a bit funny, because my gran gets me these skirts. They come down to the ankle, like that, but we tuck them up, make them come up to the knees. And you have to wear all this clothes, white shirt, V-neck jumper, and everything. I laugh when we have PE. We have to have these navy blue knickers with elastic in the leg. We never wear shorts. So when the elastic goes in one leg up, one leg down. It's really funny. But the teachers were nice. They tried to be nice anyway, and I get on very well with the headmistress, Miss Johnson. I always remember her. She's a very nice lady.
Pauline and I go to the same secondary school, Townsend, and it's good because you have that support. Everyone knows everyone because we're such a small community. Even if you don't know their name, you know they belong to a family.
What amazes me is if you do something wrong, you don't speak to anyone. By the time you get home, your mom knows. I don't know how they get the message there so quickly, but she knows.
Most of my relatives was in St Albans, but I was sent to Birmingham to visit my uncle-in-law. When you step off the train and check out of immigration, it was sort of late, so the only way the time to get to Birmingham was by a taxi. And when I approached a taxi, he said he had a little girl and his wife was working. So, he said, he had to wait and see if his wife was working shift right. So, his wife was working shift, and then, well, I don't think he had too much work that day, so he was glad when I said I would go to Birmingham. It's a long waiting time because the cars can only do 45 miles down the hill. Yeah. So he said, okay, I'll take it to my home, and when my wife comes in, we'll take the journey. And that's what happened. And yes, he was an Englishman indeed. So, you put on the television. Never seen a telly before. And when he switched on the television, there were guns. And I started talking. Guess who that was? John Wayne. I said, I thought you were going to blow my head off. So he started laughing. He was so nice. He made me a hot chocolate, and he was impressed because he thought he didn't expect he could understand me that much. But we had a good conversation, so he made me a hot chocolate. And at midnight he said, well, come on, sunshine. We got to Birmingham now. There's no motorway, so I guess we'll have to take the A1. Oh, we'll never get to Birmingham. We leave midnight. I can remember that quite well. We left midnight. I got to Birmingham 6 o'clock in the morning. It cost £18, and that was a lot of money.
At last, my school days are over. I look forward to starting my first job and earning some money of my own. Our teachers all wanted us to be secretaries, but I don't want to be a secretary because I can't stand the thought of just sitting behind a desk and shifting papers. I want to get out and do things. At school, I was very active. I was the athletics captain. I played netball. I was captain of the Rounders team, and we played tennis. And the thing like that, hockey, I could not stand that. That was one sport I just did not like. So when they said, are you going to be a secretary? I said, I don't think so. I decided to train as a machinist. I'm going to work down Lateral Road for Orchid Laundry.
I'm going to Café College to do a secretarial course. I'm going to be a medical secretary. My sister is one, and she says it's a good job.
I didn't have no job waiting for me, because at the time, when you arrived from the Caribbean, you only have a British passport. It was from 1962 when you have to have someone offer a job. Offer it before you could come. Yes, it was a job people to sponsor you, and you got to have an employer offering, but I came early.
Today I went for another interview for a job in an office. I didn't get it. The woman in the agency kept me waiting, and when she finally saw me, she said I didn't have enough experience. I don't think this is true. One of the agency staff told me that when any black person applies for a job, they will get a C put on their card. So that was all they said they wanted. There was a word she used, something like rose complexion. There was a euphemism for taking on a lighter skinned person.
When I came here, I was just 21. I worked my first job at the Mile House. My brother used to work there, and he got me a job before I came. Yeah, and it was an engineer, because when I left school, I went to work as a mechanic, so I could do everything. Worked there for 5.5 years, and I decided to leave because I wanted that better job.
I've given up the medical secretarial course. I hated it. I'm going to do the last year of a private secretarial course.
My first job in England was up through Hemel Hempstead at John Dickinson. There were paper dealers with airmail envelopes, all sorts of envelopes. I think it was one of the biggest employers in the area. So most folks there work from St Albans because there's no employment in St Albans, only the gasworks. The only place any black man could get a job was the gasworks.
I decided then I'll stay home on maternity leave. I didn't want to go back to Orchid Laundry, so I'm going to do my nursing training at St Albans Hospital.
At last, I've got a job. It's a builder's merchant called Shanky in London Cody. And the type of prices, it's so boring.
During nursing training, we had to do 2 months on nights, and I hated nights because we had to go out, relieve other people on wards for their breaks and everything. And it isn't really funny walking in the dark to go to different wards. Except for that, I liked it because we all got on together, we had great fun, playing jokes on each other and stuff like that.
There was a lot of jobs going about but the way is to get the job, you walk along and you see the signboard, say vacancies. Several of them depend on what vacancies, anything like sweeping or labouring, but any engineering work, you might find you wouldn't get it. Why you wouldn't get engineering work or professional work? What reason was given? Just didn't like you, I think. Perhaps while it's not now, it was purely prejudice.
So I left Mile House and I went to Hanley Page Aircraft in Park Street until the beginning of 1970. They sold it to the Americans and they decided to close the airfield. So most of us get transferred to them or CO Sidley Aviation in Hatfield. And that become British Aerospace.
I'm leaving Shanky to have my baby. I don't think I'll go back. Even if I'm not living out of work a bit, there must be better jobs than that.
It was horrible when I left St Albans. I hurt my back, lifting, so I had to give it up. But I had already done my training and passed my nursing exam, so I was all right.
Where I worked was a place that you would not find Englishmen of my age at the time. I was 20 years old. 20 years. I could read, I could write, I could speak the language, but there's no job for me. If the advertising say trainees, and you go, and when they see your face, they will tell you the position has gone. Even a sweeping job, a labouring job, when you find work, you get on, you get up, all right?
After a couple of years, I saw this job in the newspaper, and they wanted a secretary, and it was a law firm. And to this day, I don't know why I applied for it. And then I got it. So that was 1980. He said, Missy, and he must have been about 85, I suppose. I can't remember now. And he said that I wasn't the most qualified one that he had seen, and it kind of went from there. And that's where my legal career began, because I was with him for a couple of years, and then he decided to set up a partnership, and he asked me if I could go with him. But it was in Harpenden, and I lived in St Albans. I didn't have a car, and I had my son, so I said no, I couldn't do it, and stayed with the old firm.
My mother told me that she worked at various places, and some of them were really friendly. Well, it was about 25 years. She worked until she was retired. But later in life, and I found this really it did upset me, when she asked me if I'd ever been called the N-word when I was at work. And I kind of looked shocked. And she said that's what they used to call that. So it was obviously something that she'd experienced. And I think it goes back to what I was saying. I think she was trying to protect us while not letting us up.
Then in 1989, there was the recession. So it was the last in, first out. And I was just one of them. So I started to temp. And then I ended up with this other gentleman firm. I basically stayed with him for 6 years. I started as a temp, and then he took me on permanently. Then one day he said to me I was going to train as a legal executive. That's how it started. And I had to get an A-level, so I went to college and did A-level in English, which he paid for. And then I started doing the degree in the evening and worked during the day. My child was being looked after by childminders, and my parents were here initially. It was an external one at University of London. After 5 years, I finished the course and I got my law degree.
So I worked at British Aerospace for many, many, many years. I became the foreman, and it became one big family, you know? It was a good job, and I nearly retired there. But then they were moving on old British Aerospace to some big deal to Germany, because they stopped making the Airbus. When the Airbus was built by everybody, it would be bits and pieces in France, in Germany, in Italy. I built part of it. They still do that today, and they changed the name from British Aerospace to BAE Systems. I could have gone to Europe, but I didn't want to. I've done at least 30 years, which I'm quite happy and quite proud of doing. And because of that, I can live comfortably now.
I went on to engineering in Welwyn Garden City. I did a course studying engineering. And then I was working at a factory making springs, you know, when you push the pen down. And that was more paid, because I've studied now. I get a bit more paid. But I still went through the hard knocks, because when I get to a certain stage where I should be upgraded, they give me a young man for me to train him. And as soon as he learned the job, then I was demoted. And this young man, he was English, and I'm demoted because I'm black. But I knew more than him because I taught him. Did they give me time to study? No, but they gave him time to study. So I take my own. It was called Johnson Springs Company. It was very disappointing when you've studied, you're doing your job, and then to be demoted after you train someone. They're like that to you. And it seems to be the pattern, doesn't it?
Times were hard, but money could go a long way.
I made friends from St Vincent, St Kitts, Trinidad and Tobago, and we all lived together like we knew each other from birth.
We went to parties together, we made our own parties, and we helped each other out.
You got to know everybody by name, where they lived and where they worked.
We love suits. Even today, I still have 32 suits. I always wear a lot of suits. And when we came here, I would never go anywhere. There's no black person who would step out without a suit. Always wear a suit to go to work, or the shop, or even go to the pub. I mean, that's why we got into the pub. And we never sit down. Yeah, we always stand. And that's how it was. We were always dressed and we always wore our hats. But that's a tradition because of the sun. I still have loads of hats. When I came here, there was no sort of tailor who made nice flash suits. It was just Burtons. And we used to say Burtons couldn't even make overalls. So we used to drive to London, Tottenham, all over the place. And we find these Greek Cypriots that were very good making suits. And you go down to see them on Saturday, and by next Saturday, it's ready. We used to go to the town hall every Saturday night. We used to go set up dances out there, all in our suits and ties.
When I came here, it was a shock to the system. There's nothing to do, you know, just the TV. In those days, we have TV, just one station, the BBC.
When you rented a room, you couldn't put an aerial on the roof because we used to move around wherever it's nearest that suits us.
You know, we like to be happy because my mum always said, even the bad times are good. And that's how we grew up. It's hard and bad and good.
You know, we help each other, and it doesn't matter whether you're black or white.
Remember Saturday soup? Where everyone had soup on a Saturday. Well, I'd say everyone in our little circle because there was our family. Then there was my Aunt Linda and Uncle Joe. Between us, she was actually our cousin because her mother and my mother were sisters. But she lived near us. And then there was also a friend who lived in Verulam Road. Then we had the Millers who lived in Kings Road. So we've always had a lot of people in our house. Basically, it would be chicken or beef. My mother never asked for lamb, so we didn't have lamb for lunch. It was chicken, and it would be that potato and yam, definitely dumpling. And it would be kind of boiled. And then my mum would put chicken noodle soup in. That was from a packet. And it was like a meal. It wasn't like you get vegetable soup and it's all kind of chopped up into little pieces. This would be like big dumplings and potato, yum. And my mum used to put it all in a box.
We didn't have lots of money. The money we had grew very, very far. So you don't have to borrow anything like that, you know, yes? And banking was a problem because somebody had to recommend you to the bank in those days. You couldn't just walk in the bank and take an account out. You know, somebody who had a bank account had to recommend you to the bank as it used to be, and especially Barclays. And that's the only bank we used to use.
There was a time when we didn't have a bank in the black community, and we used our own bank. Yeah, that's what we used to do. They used to call it partner. I don't know if you've heard the name. So you become the bank card, and each week one of us give you £5. And then when it becomes £100, you give it to you, and then next week you. If you're the last to get this week, you'll get first when it started again next week. Nobody ever default, not a single person.
Some people did used to run away with the money. But it worked because that's how lots of folks could afford to put £5, and you could afford more than that when you come here, when you have to find somebody who you can, you know, is reliable, trustworthy. So that's how we manage. So if you bought a house, I then you money, and when you get the house, 3 bedrooms mostly, you rent me a room. Folks and the girlfriends that they left behind, or their wives, they used to see a house they want, but sometimes they don't get the house because when they go for it, it's not for sale, or somebody says it's gone already, because they say, well, no blacks, no dogs, and no Irish.
Sometimes it used to be £2 for a single room. A single room would be what you would call a box room right now. You know, a single room and a bedroom. Next room up to that now would be £2 and then £3. So if you earn £10 with that sort of money coming in, you could pay the bank back. Yes, for a husband and wife, it was very economical to start out, and that's how some folks get to pay for their houses.
The houses are better now than they used to be, and people do more work to the outside. But when we bought ours in Berners Street, it wasn't livable. You know, I would say you could literally knock it down, but friends came round and helped. The roof was no good, but the Irish always been good to us. We always find an Irish friend, which is really good. I mean, one morning, the door knocked. There was a big Irish man, and he said, "I'm in the air doing a roof." And he said, "I'm not going to challenge you, but I want all your slides." There were slides up there instead of tiles, and he said, "Finish your roof before I remove the tiles from the gallery." And he took them down. And he took them down. I stacked them around the back. Then redo the board, and he put me a new roof up there, which is still there as it was. It must be 40 years ago. He replaced all my gutters, took the slides, and I've never seen him again. Never seen him again. He didn't charge me 1 penny. You know, I was the first black to move into the street.
There was a lady lived across the road, right opposite me, Mrs. Jones. She was an headmistress, or she used to be an headmistress at the school. So she was the head teacher everybody looked up to. So they decided to buy the house to stop me getting it. They was all there. All of them put in money to buy the house. But it was lost. They couldn't make the money. They couldn't buy it. Yeah, I couldn't buy it. And they couldn't make the money at that time, you know. If you got £5,000, you're a millionaire. We buy this house was £4,000, like what's a million now? But it was £4,000. It was amazing.
My mum, she had various things. It was, if anyone went to Jamaica, for example, she'd like have a pin pendant on the wall, a Jamaican map, and things like that. And then she'd have a carpet, or, you know, glass-fronted cupboards with ornaments and crockeries and things when special, for special occasions, and various cabinet ornaments. You know, like those fish, those psychedelic fish. It was glass-blown fish. And what else? She had a trolley. And the only time we were allowed to go there was when you had to dust it. That was the front room. You never went there. Children were never allowed in the front room.
When I couldn't do nursing, I didn't want to go into training then. I had early retirement, so I put myself into practice. Lots of Caribbean women had their own sewing machines. I used to sew at home for people, make curtains and everything. And that's what I did, because I had my little boy to look after. I had my own sewing machine, which my mum bought for me, actually. And I used it to sew.
I can play dominoes, but I always think it's a boring game. Yeah, but I can play. I got 2 packs of dominoes here. You know, you got people coming. I've got a friend. He lives, he sleeps, he eats. Got to play dominoes. And he retired now. And as you go down his house, he just moved into a bungalow the other day. And as soon as you get there, out comes the dominoes. And I play a couple of games with him. But I don't mind. Because, you know, they used to go to the pub and just play dominoes, but that wasn't for me.
Some of the houses have basements. There's a few houses like that at Bedford Road. And then we're in the basement, the music playing, the blues, the jazz, and the reggae. Your friend, he's got green banana and fish. And we dance the night away. So we used to get together. And this was how we kept the spirits up.
I can't take it. I'm so lonely. Gee, I need you so. I can't take it. And I wonder why you had to go. Oh, I remember. Now my heart, my very soul cries out for more. But baby, all your love for me is dying. Tears on my pillow, pain in my heart. You are my mind.
There was an Englishman in St Vincent. He was a Methodist. And he was very, very friendly, very nice. And he teach us, same like it's for men, how to play games and minister. Then when he left St Vincent, he went to Grenada, Jamaica. And when we settled in England, we tracked him down from Jamaica. He left Jamaica and he came back to England. So to cut a long story short, we found out where he was. He was living in Sunderland. And the Methodist minister in St Albans got in touch with him. And he invited us, yes, he invited us to Sunderland. And we arranged a trip. And we went to Sunderland and we had a good time. He was very, very friendly. Now when we knew him in St Vincent, he would have been much younger. He was much older when we saw him again. But he remembers many people in Jamaica and in St Vincent. So we had a jolly good time. And the trip was returned, we invited him back. And we had a lovely time. I think it was 1996. Just when they were building the Sand Hill Road Church. Yes. And then he was able to preach, really preach at both churches.
I'm thankful that I'm a Christian, and that plays heavily in my life. I couldn't be who I am and where I am without God. I have to give all credit and praise to God, because I saw some people who were in bad relationships, couldn't turn round, and went to alcohol. Some went to gambling. There was a very affluent person that I was working with who one day he got a laptop for a present and started gambling in his bedroom. And through that, he lost the house, embezzlement, all that coming from one little act. And for me, because I keep saying I have a friendship with God, I believe there's certain boundaries. That voice that prompted me that says, red light, stop. Don't go beyond there. And I think it's important for all of us to have faith in God. I do believe God exists, and I don't judge or ram it down people's throats. But for me, for what I've experienced and what I've been through, and I've had some difficult times in my life too, I believe in God.
Well, I've been to all the churches in St Albans. I remember saying, please can I go to church? And the church now would come along and pick you up. And I started going to the Thomas's church. And then from there, I went to the New Testament church. So wherever there was a church, I went because it meant community. And you could be with your friends. But as I got older, I realized that serving God really meant. It wasn't about going to church. It was your day-to-day interaction with God. And I would say to someone that it's not about which church you go to. It's your relationship with God.
I came from Jamaica.
I was born in St Vincent.
I was from St Kitts.
My brother and I were born in Barbados.
Answering the call of the British Empire.
Grenada, Aruba, Jamaica, Cuba, Anguilla.
And we were being called ghosts.
chemists,
We had some very bright young men and women who came out of West Indies at that time. Very educated people, and they couldn't get jobs. Not one of them.
A lot of people came over well educated and trained in specific areas, but it was difficult for them to get the jobs in St Albans. They were accepted, for example, the tailor who went to Burton's.
I have a cousin. He went to grammar school. When you pass your grammar school exam, those boys and girls, they're the ones who came out to be doctors, lawyers, and other professions. And when you go to grad school, your parents will look to see that you've become something. So, my cousin, he was a magistrate clerk, and he comes to England now, and the only job they offered him was to peel potatoes.
There was no employment in St Albans except the gasworks. The only place any black man could be employed was the gasworks.
It was a place that you will not find Englishmen of my age at the time.
When they see your face, they tell you that position is gone.
If you missed your bus, you wouldn't be able to get that. And at that time, you get 2 warnings. If you're late after 2 warnings, then the 3rd one will be out. So you've got to make sure that you don't miss your bus.
A lot of folks used to work at nights.
I was working at St Albans Hospital with maintenance, and they used to give me the most rough work. Although I was not supposed to be stoking the fire, the white man was supposed to do that. He was giving me the job to stoke up the turbine. Yeah, take me out of my job that I'm supposed to be doing. Fitting, cutting, fixing pipes, all this kind of thing. Whenever they need the turbine, because you have to keep them burning, you got to keep the hospital warm. So when that time came, I was taken off my job to load up the turbine. So you went and stoked the fire, and then you had to go back to your own job. And he got paid for standing and watching. And I was the one that had to do 2 jobs. His was a higher paid job than mine. And what's the point of complaining? No, there'll be no satisfaction, boy. And I was afraid I may lose my job. And I really need it.
There was this company, Rosie's Lime Juice, and it's a big international company making all sorts of drinks. And we have a good cricket team. We played against them, and our special bowler bowled them out for little or nothing. And he was also a good batsman. And they took him away from us, and they gave him a job. But in the 60s, he was the only black person that was working for them. When they want a vacancy, they bring in white folks from London.
They said government was very prejudiced against black people. Here was getting over qualified jobs. Does matter how good you are. The time in the 60s, you will not be a qualified, you would not get a qualified job.
Just didn't like you. I think because while it's now I would say it was purely prejudice.
When they go, somebody says it's not for sale. It's gone already, because they say, well, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
Most of the time, many of us didn't have no white friends, or class white friends, because in order to interact with those sorts of people, you got to be in the league. They wouldn't drink with you. We couldn't go to their places. You would never know there's a barrier. But there was a barrier between us, whether male or female.
So okay now, Benito, they used to make women's clothes and stockings. And to get the job, you got to be very fat. I mean, in complexion, right? Come from the West Indies, mixed race, which we have quite a lot of mixed race people. And you might get the job, but if you are purely black, then no chance.
There was name calling on the streets. I experienced that. Oh yes. And then you got the muds and the rockers. They used to call you Polycom Gollywog. You got it at work, yeah. and we used to get attacked with bicycle chains and long ship shoes, winkow pickers. They were Italian made, very strong leather. When somebody give you a kick up your shin with one of those, and they will attack you in a group of them with a bicycle chain, which have studs in them. So we find it a very difficult life, very hard life.
When you're a minority there, you've got to put up with a lot because of who's going to say anything.
It was hard. There was racism in the streets, at work, at school, or at college.
When you're studying, you don't get the attention. The teacher never used to give you what you think you need, and they think you deserve what you deserve. So we were overlooked when we needed help, had to find our own way.
I could trace my steps back. Anything you do as a black person, there was barriers. There's always barriers. When you go to buy a house, then the mortgage on the house, you pay more interest. I don't know if a lot of people realise that. They used to pay more interest and the house would be more expensive than what the actual price was.
And when you move into black person, as a black person, the white person will lose out.
It's a long road, and there's a lot of our folks here think, well, they don't know the suffering that their parents went through for them to get better lives. Even going to school was a problem. So I'd like to make it known. I usually say, whenever I had a chance to tell anyone who would listen to me, that it was not easy. It was very rough and tough. St Albans was very prejudiced then.
I will say it hasn't gone completely. Make no mistake, but it's a lot better because there are a lot more people here now. When you've got children, some of them will not tolerate the nonsense that we went through because many of us left our mothers and fathers. But these children were born here. I would advise anyone, do not sit on your laurels and think all is well because we're living in a changing world. And what we went through, I don't think our younger folks would go through that again.
And people are more wised up now, but like everywhere else, there's still a lot to do. And you can change. Many of us go home and find that things are a bit sluggish. But England did a lot for black people, especially the West Indies. And that, of course, helped many of us help others. So it's not a better road if there is any better road. But I want to die in the West Indies, any part of the West.
I will go and live in any part of the West Indies. And all we need to do is to cooperate with one another. And I think the door is open, wide open now. And as West Indians, you can move from one path to another. There is more unity between West Indies. And I hope may that continue. And people will be able to see that we're all the same under the bondage of slavery.
I know many of our children, second generation, third generation, they will not go and make a home in the Caribbean. But I say home is where you make it. There's no point making it difficult for yourself, but you must save a portion of what you make. Not save everything. Nobody can save everything, but save as much as you can, because as my mother used to say, there are wet days ahead. So don't depend on the government. You're gonna get old, because we see what happened literally. I loved England when the National Health Service was set up for the poor people. So I hope that when the young generations really take stock, because things are changing and changing fast. So look after yourself, take good care, and those for the look, going to trust to you.
The first people I knew were still friends. I mean, some of them gone back, but basically we still get Christmas cards. Christmas, yeah, because we were like family, everybody, you know. And we had some laughs. Absolutely nothing worried me. Because if I knew somebody don't like me, I laugh, and that makes him unhappy. But nobody was so malicious. And we used to get on with everybody up to this day.
The only thing I would like to say is St Albans has changed compared with how it used to be. If somebody comes now, there's no jobs. I mean, computers don't really manufacture anything now, because the way people are now is different from the way we used to do things manually. Some people don't even work, and that kind of state is literally a throwaway society. But I would say St Albans is a good place to live.
Yeah, I would say we had a good life. I never been out of a job, neither does she ever been out of a job. But I'm glad I did come to St Albans because my older brother was in London, and if you live in London, London have too much worry.
You know, St Albans, even if you don't have a lot, you can still live because there is a lot in St Albans. If you prepare for your older days, then you've got no problem. But most of the people I work with, I didn't really work with many black people, but most were from Scotland, Liverpool, and we'd laugh all day because we find something to laugh about. And a lot of them were poor, from poor families. But they lift themselves up and what I describe as normal, you know. They have most things they want, so I think St Albans is a wonderful place.
People today are too serious. They just think about money, and money can only do certain things. Money can't come in and make you a cup of tea. I think people is important. I mean, during the pandemic, people here was dropping us letters through the door. If you need anything, call us. You know my phone number. And we didn't have to call anybody, but it's insurance, you know.
People think about you, people willing to help if you need help, and that is more important.
They have an old saying, good friends are better than pocket money, you know? Because you could have a pocket full of money, but you can walk down the street to get what you want. But with good friends,
I think you can have whatever you want, as long as you're prepared to work for it. Nobody can stand in your way.
So I said to my kids, I can't make you be like me, you know. I mean, sometimes that I'm too old-fashioned, but we finish up lovely.
Because what is better than quality time? What we don't want is to have to do it all over again.